T-Pain says Tupac's best lyrics are only peanuts to what we hear today. And I've been noticing this for the most part. We can say all of our lives that, Tupac is still the benchmark. He is still the staple. And what I mean is this: Tupac would arguably be the Michael Jordan of rap music. And both of them happened to be bald. Both of them had exceptional tempers. And both of them were savants of their particular class. In fact, they were seen as the monster, like Max Kellerman said. I actually agree with him on that one, is that Michael Jordan was not looking to slay the monster because he was the monster. And the same could be said about Tupac. T-Pain, on the other hand, I cannot necessarily say, but I do feel T-Pain is the prototype for the likes of Drake. Although I do consider that, T-Pain made ashier music to some degree. And what I mean by that is he got real dusty with it at times, right? But the I'm in love with a stripper culture, that's absolutely carried on into the next level with the likes of Drake. Now, T-Pain, yeah, let me just call him T-Pain. I'll put that there. Now, T-Pain said lyrically that Tupac would have been slaughtered today. And I usually see this, given that Tupac is such a benchmark and a staple. A lot of people feel that this person is the next Tupac. That used to be the thing at one point in time. They're not necessarily doing that as it stands right now. I think a lot of it has to do with some slight cultural devaluation with a whack film such as All Eyes on Me. But I'm not saying the film in itself deteriorated Tupac's legacy, but it was some watering down because it was supposed to be the biopic, the first real biopic that we was going to get concerning Tupac. But it's whatever. That's another story. Demetrius Shipp and everything else. It's a whole nother story. But T-Pain, I'm going to call him T-Pain at this point. T-Pain says that the legendary rapper Tupac wouldn't be as revered had he come along in an era of social media and would have gotten ate the fuck up lyrically. So, okay, there's a couple things going on here. Number one, T-Pain is definitely drunk. Two, he's not necessarily wrong in the sense of, because there is an over-commodification of the market via social media, there is a devaluing in the market. I mean, what can you say? Too many MCs, not enough mic. This was going back way back when with Yele Wyclef was talking about it on the classic album, The Score, featuring the classical group, the Fugees. So in that regard, I don't necessarily disagree with T-Pain Shakur, but what I will say is this: you still cannot, despite any circumstances, you cannot move or remove the prolific energy that Tupac carried. Now, battling was something else, because we could argue that Hit 'Em Up wasn't a battle record. I mean, it hinted to violence, and it did eventually lead up to violence with two great MCs checking up out of here if we're talking about artistically. But on the other side of the game, Tupac wasn't really a Melly Mel-ish type rapper. He really wasn't a Kool Moe Dee type rapper. He wasn't even an LL Cool J rapper that he can give you, I'm going to knock you out, or he wanted to give you that. His I'm going to knock you out was my 4-4, make sure all y'all kids don't grow. So respectfully, we're talking about two different scenarios. And one of the things that Tupac is the great angelic demon of hip hop, because on one hand, he did give you Brenda's Got a Baby. On one hand, he did give you the flesh and the heart and the feel of the community. On the other hand, boy, Machiavelli sure did wear some shit out, didn't he? Man, Hit 'Em Up is probably one of his more popular videos on YouTube. It was also the campaigning that Tupac was able to introduce into the market before T-Pain Shakur kind of gets off of his Ciroc juice. He has to keep this in mind. Those MCs and individuals that he feel would tear Tupac up, that will rip him a new one, those people that are taking it with the smoking on packs this and smoking on packs that and smoking, that is all by way of the campaigning of the song Hit 'Em Up. Hit them up with something different. Have you had situations where people were lampooning their adversarial lyrical opponent on the microphone? You know, Luke's getting busted like Snoop Dogg did along with Dre when they were dissing Eazy-E and they were dissing Uncle Luke as well. You've had that in hip hop. That's kind of always been there. But when Tupac got in there, and plus he was just such a Shakespearean, just everything he did just was very powerful and insightful and impactful. He was really, in a lot of ways, he was hip hop's Denzel Washington, if that makes sense. And I'm talking about Denzel Washington in the sense of the range. Denzel has a lot of incredible range. He can give you an angel from a preacher's wife, and that would be Tupac's equivalency to Brenda's Got a Baby for a preacher's, wife, whatever the case is, right? However, though, there's Alonzo from Training Day. That's Machiavelli Tupac. That is Hit 'em Up Tupac. That is, hey, I got your wife. I got your wife. Yeah, I got your wife. We're going to make a baby. And I may name the baby Brenda, just out of the sake of the commemoration of Brenda, because she had a baby. So Tupac had an incredible amount of range. You can literally call him Two-Face. He was, in many ways, he was Harvey Dent from The Dark Knight, if that makes sense to you all, or Nightfall, right? Maybe it's The Dark Knight. Sometimes all of the trilogies are so damn dark. I'm like, come on now, Christopher Nolan, pay the rent in this bitch. It's too dark in this film. But anyway, great trilogy, nevertheless. However, though, Tupac would be Harvey Dent. Aaron Eckhart, he did a wonderful job in Dark Knight. And I consider that with Tupac immensely, which is why I always find it funny. Lesser artists will always come for Tupac. Always. Because he's the benchmark. He's the benchmark for good and bad, to be honest with you. In a lot of ways when I'm talking about in action. Because Tupac had such a drastic flip that he became one of the sponsorable heroes in the hood, John and Rick, they're coming from out of towns and Sandy Springs, and they just want to snatch up a little Negro kid and sponsor him because in the hood he indicated and displayed that he had immense talent. That's Tupac. Some of your white financial backers, they get behind the little black kid and they pay along his tuition, his scholarship, and he made it out of the hood, and he can stand on TV and he can say in his Thomas Sowell voice, well, if it wasn't for these investments of these said people, I would not have made it out of the hood. That's Brenda's Got a Baby Tupac. Performative, a thespian, being able to break things down, showing an array of talent. He's beautiful of what he does on the screen. That Tupac also turned into what we know, where he dies pretty much a villain. He died a villain. It's just what it is. It went from left to right. It's kind of like, again, Aaron Eckhart's portrayal of Two-Face. I think he's more so of that, when it comes to Tupac and Two-Face and the energy that he became. I think everybody else that has copied him, Ja Rule, even some of the guys today, everybody's copying him. They're kind of looking like Tommy Lee Jones' portrayal of Two-Face from Batman Forever. Nothing necessarily profound, humorous, entertaining, more than likely for some forgettable. And so I kind of lump T-Pain in that space because T-Pain didn't have the most prolific music. I think he worked better along the likes of being on board with other artists, but I never sat down and said, I just really want to knock out this T-Pain Shakur album. But when he's saying lyrically getting ate the fuck up, everybody that's trying to prove on a newer level how savage they are, that has to do directly with Tupac, T-Pain Shakur. Because Tupac did something that had not been achieved in hip hop. He died a martyr. Biggie was martyred in a different way. And have you had people that were reaching to Biggie's style lyrically, aspirationally? Of course, look at Jay-Z, right? But outside of what we've come to know about Biggie Smalls, much remained to be seen about really what was going on. And it was not so much of the ghostly, mystical, haunting zombie energy that we see with Tupac. I mean, one could argue, speaking of social media, since T-Pain brought it up himself, speaking of social media, I mean, there's so much footage and interviews and things that, like, Tupac's energy pushed all the way into the social media era. I would actually say Tupac is the first social media rapper. You know, there are so many accounts, so many clips, so many lost clips, hidden clips. There's new clips. People talked about the music. There's still clips and footages and allegedly porn video out there when it comes to Tupac, Pain Shakur. So as far as this whole thing about lyricism, that could be argued. And I think that could necessarily be argued. And I think if we don't have those conversations in respect to the craft, I think we do hip hop overall a disjustice or an injustice. Okay. Don't have me up here slurring on my words like Pain. But outside of that, in context, one of the reasons why you have so many people trying to prove themselves to be the immortal thug, even in their own variations, even if they're not necessarily using the word thug anymore, is simply directly having to do with Tupac, Mr. Pain Shakur. So I find it fascinating that, you know, every so often somebody decides to brush against the legacy of Tupac and kind of challenge it in a way and really try to devalue, diminish, or just slide it out the way. And that's something that it's a struggle in our culture. And that's even in the culture of America, but that's another story. But it is a struggle. It is an issue, but in proper context. As far as lyricism, that has always been argued in favor of Tupac or against Tupac. I actually think Tupac was an incredible lyricist because of the way he was able to touch, garner, emote, and encapsulate and translate and disseminate and show and display emotions on command. Even somebody as intricate technically as Eminem has pointed that out, that's what he respected about Tupac lyrically. He was always blown away about Tupac being able to encapsulate words. You had other notable lyricists like Nas say the same thing. Folks, if you have not ever written a poem or rap, even if you hadn't even expressed a love letter to someone that you may be interested in, folks, translating emotion and having the other person feel what you feel, or you are able to tap into what they feel as listeners and audience, is not a simple task, you know? So I think overall, I think Pain Shakur was just drunk. I'm here for it though. I love it. I love these types of conversation. I like to see what the troll babies say. I like to see what people are going to put out there. I like to see if some people get turned up about it. It's very interesting. But no, I actually believe that because Tupac died such an immortal thug, and he was immortalized generationally. Think about that. His resonance still reigns today. People still respect Biggie. They still understand him, but now Biggie is chronicled now. He's almost chronicled like the Encyclopedia Britannica. You know, it's almost like he's a museum piece at this point. And I'm talking about Biggie. I'm not denigrating his lyricism, his artistry. I think Life After Death, I personally liked it a lot better than Ready to Die, but I believe Life After Death is an incredible masterpiece. It is a textbook Bible about how to create an intricately woven masterpiece album. But I do feel at some point he became a museum piece generationally. Tupac, however, is still a hot button issue. He's still a talking point. People have content built around Tupac. People have just started Tupac channels. There are Tupac podcasts. I mean, he is still very active today. So it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of hard outside of the lyrical aspects. People argue in lyricism all the time with all rappers, Rakim, Nas, Lauryn Hill, Rhapsody. That's a talking point. That's like talking about who had the best ball game. It is what it is. But when it comes to what he was saying with everything else about being smoked, swept, actually, if Tupac had been around today with the same energy he had, I think he would have dominated. He would have dominated social media. That's ridiculous. It's kind of like when people put LeBron James in the past and say, oh, he's going to get washed. Like Patrick Ewing would be washing LeBron James, huh? Have you seen his numbers? Like career-wise, if you looked at Patrick Ewing throughout his entirety of his career, come on now. Oh, Patrick Ewing would handle LeBron. Please, LeBron will be walking through a lot of people in the past. That's how I feel about Tupac concerning social media. For real, if we look at a hack that people have overly praised, like Tekashi 6ix9ine. Oh, he's a mastermind. He knows what he's doing. He has an idea. He can smell things. He's really a brilliant then why could that not be applied to someone that's 3 times as smart as Tekashi 6ix9ine in this era? If Tupac was 23 to 25 in this era, he would have dominated social media. Get out of here with this shit. I'm out. Leave your comments below. Peace.